So today we're going to be doing the thermostat here on the SiR, and so where we're needing to get to, right down in here. So this is the thermostat housing here. It's a little cramped, but I actually don't think it'll be too bad. We'll probably just have to undo some of these harnesses here to get them out of the way, but I don't think we're going to have to take this intake hose off or anything like that. On the thermostat housing, there's one bolt here. The other one's going to be down here on the bottom on the other side. That'll be the harder one, obviously. But once we have this hose off, we should be able to get to it, and then we'll just have to disconnect this temperature sensor and this little ground here. So I don't think it'll be too bad. So I'm going to start by draining the coolant, and if you look down in here, you can see that little cutout in the bottom of the splash shield there. That's where the drain plug for the radiator is, so I'm going to undo that to drain the coolant. A little cramped. While the coolant's draining, I'll start to remove all the connectors and harnesses I need to get out of the way in order to gain access to the thermostat housing. And so now I think the next thing to do is we'll take that lower coolant hose off. Alright, so we've got that lower hose off, and so there's our thermostat housing. We've got the one bolt there, but I'm going to need to take that ground bolt off and that temp sensor. So I'm going to take the ground bolt off first, I think. Okay, so we've got that ground strap off, sensor disconnected. There's the one bolt up top there. The other bolt, it's like under in there. Yeah, that's going to be a pain. All right, guys, so that is what I did in order to get that last bolt. So you need a real small 1/4 inch ratchet and then 10 mil, and you just kind of got to cram your hands down in there. And yeah, it's broken loose now, so I'll be able to get it off, but yeah, that one definitely a tight fit down there, and you really got to just kind of push those cable harnesses out of the way. All right, that lower bolt is out. That should be the hardest part of the job. I'm sure it's going to be equally fun to put it back in. All right, there we go. The lower bolt is often somewhat loose because the hack before you couldn't reach it very well, but I find the upper bolt on thermostat housings tends to usually be much tighter, and in this case the little tiny ratchet I was using didn't have enough leverage to break it loose. So you'll see me slide a pipe over that little ratchet to give me a little bit more leverage to crack the bolt. Okay, and now we should be able to remove the housing. There she comes. And there's our old thermostat. So thermostat came out with the housing, so we'll separate it there. We'll go ahead and grab our new one. So we do need to install the new seal over the thermostat. So that's for the pin at the top of the thermostat. This is the front. So there's kind of like a slit in there that you just line the thermostat up in. So go ahead and do that. Now when we're installing the thermostat in the housing, the pin goes at the top. On these cars there's even like a cutout in the housing that shows where the pin goes, so it's super easy. So remember, pin up at the top. Yeah, it'll kind of stay, and then I can just put the housing over top of that. You want to have at least one of the bolts threaded through already so it can kind of catch as you're putting the housing back on and hold it in place. Okay, yeah, so I got the top one threaded in. I'm threading that in first, so at least it holds it there. So what you can do in situations like this, if you got a difficult bolt, you can put some masking tape or a shop towel in the socket like that, and it'll kind of hold the bolt, so it's going to make this easier to thread in without falling out and dropping it. So let's see if this works. And so I tightened it a bunch by hand, and you can see my socket is still on it there, and the socket is sticking much better to the bolt this time because of that shop towel that I shoved in there. So now I'm going to get my socket onto it and tighten it up. But we got that lower one. Just a short little extension works better for the upper one. Fuck you. Alright. And now we're tightening the upper bolt. All right, got those decently tight. I'm gonna slide a new hose clamp over it. I want to make sure that I got my cabling all routed correctly here. I'm going to assume that that went under. So when you're going to reinstall your lower rad hose, make sure that it needs to route under that other smaller hose, and there's kind of a little clamp piece that one end clamps onto this hose and then the other end clamps onto that hose, and it just keeps them spaced apart. Otherwise they're going to be touching each other, which you don't want. So the hose is back on, and I'm going to start just redoing all my connections. I've dropped so many sockets today. Go like that. Alright guys, so there we go. I've got everything reconnected. I don't think I missed anything. So, time to refill it with coolant and bleed it. Looks like we're good, nothing's leaking. So that'll about do it for this episode. We've crossed off our first task we needed to do on the EM1 SiR. Thermostat is replaced, and as daylight fades, I'm just going to start the car up and bleed the coolant. Again, I've got other videos that go into more detail about bleeding coolant. Should you need that, you can check them out on the channel.